Welcome to the I Love Buffalo podcast. Part of the I Love Buffalo network with your host, Josh Catry.
Welcome, good neighbors, to the I Love Buffalo podcast. I'm your host, Josh Catry. If you're new, a little bit about the podcast. We'll cover everything from Buffalo's news, business, sports, crime, art, music, politics, history, unsolved murders, corruption, jiu-jitsu, nature, the outdoors, entrepreneurship, upcoming events, and all things that champion the underdog city that we all love and the good people in it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today in the podcast, a local police officer who trains in jiu-jitsu safely controls an autistic teenager in a violent situation without harming him. The air quality advisory for Western New York is high. New York considers a suicide-assisted bill. The top 10 reasons you should get your kids into jiu-jitsu. And I find my first fossil at Penn Dixie, and it's a good one. All this and more on this episode of the I Love Buffalo podcast.
Shades unseen.
That right there was Buffalo's own Glass Bird. They are a psychedelic rock band from Buffalo, New York. I happened to meet the lead singer, Steve, when I was out birding one day. We were birding the same area, and we started talking, and he introduced me to some of his music, and it's really good. It's got that kind of slow, trippy rock vibe to it. There are some songs that are a little bit heavier, too, mixed in. It's got a really unique sound, and there's 3 albums out. You can find them on YouTube. I just searched for Glass Bird as the topic, and I was able to find all 3 of their albums. Periodically throughout this episode, we'll be playing some more Glass Bird, so be sure to check them out. In our first segment here, I would like to honor a police officer who did the right thing under a high-stress situation. So this police officer trains in jiu-jitsu. He trains where I train, and he's one of our purple belts. Been training a long time. He's good jiu-jitsu. He practices all the time, and he practices a lot specifically to be able to be a better police officer, which, by the way, everyone who's a police officer should be doing this. If your job is partially to try to get people under control and stop them from harming themselves or others, then learning how to do that with hand-to-hand combat is very, very valuable. And any police officer or law enforcement officer who takes their job seriously should do this, and this is a perfect example of why. I'm going to read the text that he sent to me, and I got this the other day. It said, "Hey, Professor, I just want to take a second to thank you for anything jiu-jitsu related you've ever taught me. Yesterday, I had to respond to a house where a 19-year-old kid with autism was attacking his mom, reportedly with a bat. When I got there, he charged at me, and I was able to snap him down and pin him without hurting him, without cuffing him. And I was able to talk to him quietly until he calmed down. That was 100% only possible because of the jiu-jitsu you helped me learn. I'm positive half of my coworkers would have punched him or tased him. I'm just grateful he didn't get hurt. Once he calmed down, he was a really nice kid." As someone who has loved ones on the spectrum, it's a fear that someday they will cross law enforcement or someone in authority or with power in the wrong way at the wrong time, maybe when they're having a difficult time. I just want to take a moment to thank this officer for the courage and the wisdom that it took to make that right choice. Under that stress, under that, you're going up to a house. I mean, you got to put yourself in the shoes of officers a little bit here, you know? Any officer, when they get called to a house and they hear there's violence happening inside that house, imagine you walking up to that door. Right? This is a lot of times it's only empathy for the victims, but there should be empathy for both sides here because both sides deserve empathy. And it's hard to make an empathetic, smart choice in the moment. And honestly, that's one of the things that jiu-jitsu has taught me is that when there's pressure, when there's duress, you can still problem solve and think clearly and try to think of the outcome that you want. And so this officer wasn't just physically trained in a way to stop this young man from hurting himself or others, but he was mentally trained for it. That's what jiu-jitsu does. It puts you under duress. You voluntarily, every day you go to class, choose to put yourself in these stressful situations, but those high-stress situations on the mats in the practice room, they translate to the real world. Really, that's all that practice is there for, right? We practice in order for the real scenario to be able to think clear and act and respond better. And this officer did exactly what he was supposed to do. This, I hope, is a lesson to all law enforcement out there. Honestly, if I was in charge of the world and could just swipe a pen, I think you'd have to be a blue belt, which is the first belt that you get in jiu-jitsu, just to be a police officer. Because a well-trained blue belt can control probably most other people that don't have any training. So if you have no training and versus a blue belt, within reason is going to be able to control most people just with that much skill set, especially if it's geared towards policing. Because you can change a little things. You got to change some things like where's your weapon, and you don't really want to be on the bottom when you're on the streets. A bunch of things like that. How to cuff someone safely if you need to cuff them. There's all kinds of practice that you can do in a classroom. And I've seen so many videos where you take a well-trained black belt and two cops that don't know jiu-jitsu, and you give the cops a pair of handcuffs and say, go ahead, cuff me, buddy. They are not able to cuff a black belt. But if you get two guys that are trained very well, not even to the level of black belt, just to the level of how to control someone, they do a much, much, much better job. And a lot of the training in policing does not even go around how to properly control people. Granted, in recent times, I think it's leaning a little bit more that way, and people are realizing the power of jiu-jitsu and implementing it. But this was just a good lesson for everyone. I was really grateful that this officer shared that text with me and allowed me to share it with others. And, I just also try to have empathy for the police. They're walking up to this door. They don't know what's going on. It's stressful. You don't know what's going to be behind that door. You don't know who's coming at you and with what weapon or what's going on. And to be able to think clearly in that moment and realize, okay, I can disarm this with my hands. Yeah, that does go a long way to protecting and serving. Protecting and serving is what the police are supposed to do. And I'm happy to know that it's alive and well right here in Western New York. So respect to that officer, respect to any officers who train. Respect to any officers regardless if they put their, selves in between the public and danger, if that's what they're genuinely doing. But please train. It could save your life. It could save someone else's lives. And most importantly, it will give you the mindset to handle this kind of pressure to make the right decision if and when it happens in the streets. You do it in a controlled room with padding, and you put yourself under this stress so that your mind is in the right spot to choose the correct path where the outcome is the best for all involved. And I know that's not always possible to choose a path where no one gets hurt, where deadly force isn't used. There absolutely is a time and place to defend yourself or to use deadly force. But to know the difference in the heat of the battle, the only way to do that is to train. And if you're not doing that, you're doing everyone a disservice. But to all of you out there that are training and work in law enforcement, you have my highest respect, and I thank you. In our next segment, we're going to cover the current situation in the air. So this is early June already, and the wildfire smoke advisories are already going off. And this smoke is coming from Canada, the Canadian wildfires, just like it did the last couple summers. Sometimes it was really bad where you could see the smoke in the air. I was outside a little bit this weekend. I couldn't really tell the air quality was that bad or not, but the warnings were going up, especially for sensitive groups, people that have asthma and heart disease and children and the elderly, of course. I never remember these happening before. Only in the last couple of years have these really started happening. And in my lifetime, I don't remember there ever really being any wildfires in Canada and blowing down this way. That's where these fires are coming from, Eastern Canada, Quebec, And when there's prevailing winds pushing south, it blows all that smoke into New York, and we get the residue from it. Now, they say that there's a dry spell going on in Canada, which has caused a lot of the boreal forest to be dry and more prone to fires. But I do know that this particular year, winter was much longer. So this year we had a very long winter and a wet winter, and the ground was wet for a longer time. Now, I'm not sure if that's true in the boreal forest. It just seemed like this wouldn't be a problem this year, but maybe the northern Canadian and eastern Canadian forests did not receive the same amount of moisture as we have. I mean, here in Buffalo, we haven't had a dry weekend in 24 consecutive weeks, going on 25 weeks now. So that just tells you, like, it's pretty tropical over this way. There's actually a bunch of history when it comes to Canadian wildfires where it has to do with birds. So there's a certain kind of bird, one of the rarest birds in North America is called the Kirtlands warbler. And it only breeds in jack pine forests. So that means like pine trees where they're like the size of Christmas trees that you'd put in your house to maybe, 15 feet high in that kind of range. And so those used to be more prevalent when there was a lot of forest fires where the fire would come through and it would destroy the forest and then new forest would start and you'd have jack pines. Well, humans got so good at controlling forest fires for a long, long time that the Kirtlands warbler's habitat in Canada and in northern Michigan pretty much went away and the bird almost went extinct. At one point, it was down to just like a few hundred mating pairs left. And what we did as people to solve this was we did controlled burns. One of the people who strongly advocated for this and helped the burns happen in the beginning, his name was James Swiderski, and he died in the controlled burns on accident. And this caused people to be very alarmed and want to stop the controlled burns. But his parents actually advocated to continue. They didn't want his death to go for nothing. He was trying to save this bird, so they advocated to keep doing it, but change the protocols and make it safer. So there was a policy overhaul, and they did a whole bunch of different safety measures to prevent that from ever happening again, more training, clearly defined burn zones, and very reliable escape routes. The good news is that the combined efforts here to save the Kirtlands warblers worked. And it went from under 200 singing males in the 70s to pretty close to 5,000 singing birds today. It has been removed from the endangered species list since 2019. So overall, it's a huge success story. But I always think about these controlled burns just over the Canadian border in southern Ontario there. Every time these fires happen and the haze comes down, I wonder if it's actually making some positive change and maybe some good habitat for birds that like young forests and jack pine forests.
Find me a good place to be afraid. Here come the waves.
In our next segment here, New York is aiming to pass a Medical Aid in Dying Act. So this is Assembly Bill A-136 and Senate Bill S-138. So the purpose of this bill would be to allow terminally ill and mentally competent adults to request and self-administer life-ending medications prescribed by a physician. So the eligibility for this would be you have to be at least 18 years old. You must be diagnosed with a terminal illness with a prognosis of 6 months or less. You must be deemed mentally competent to make this decision by at least 2 physicians. And the safeguards in place, you must make 2 oral requests and 1 written request witnessed by 2 people. There's a mandatory waiting period between requests and the right to rescind the request at any time. 2 doctors, 2 attending and consulting, must confirm eligibility. This is self-administration only. No one else may deliver the dose. And physicians must offer counseling and palliative care options as well. And there's must be a protocol for the unused medications to make sure that they're disposed of and no one gets their hands on them. This is one of those things that I have kind of mixed feelings on. I know in Canada, they have very loose laws, or at least they used to, for about how you could commit suicide and doctor-assisted suicides. And people were killing themselves just because they were saying things like, oh, I'm depressed, I want to die. And then they were being helped to commit suicide. And I think this is wrong. However, when it comes to like terminal illness and you're going to go through some extreme suffering, this I think should be your choice as a person. I mean, it's your choice anyways, but to get the doctors in the medical field involved, I think that at the very least, it should be something that's terminal and has protocols sort of like this. This is a tough one. I mean, I believe in freedom. If you ask me my political views, they don't adhere to any labels, but they do adhere to freedom. And my right to swing my fist should end where your nose begins. And I guess this is a personal choice, something that you would choose to do. However, you're folding in sometimes the physicians or medical personnel and things like this. So this is one of those things that I don't have really strong feelings on one way or another, unless they're too loose and just allowing people to kill themselves because they're depressed without trying other means or things like this. As of right now, the bill has passed the Assembly in April to a vote of 81 to 67 and is supposed to go to the Senate soon, possibly on June 9th. Once we hear some more updates about that, we'll keep everyone in the loop.
Winter's mess holds all the notes I took. Yeah, yeah. Faded and strewn across the neighbor's lawn. Get ready, tie that millstone around my neck.
In our next segment here, we always end the episodes with the saying, get your kids into jiu-jitsu. And today we decided to make a list of the top 10 reasons why. Reason number 1, it's self-defense that actually works. Because you practice it at the same speed, basically, that you would in a fight, you are able to translate that into the real world at a very high level. It is testable. Every day you spar, and that sparring translates into very close simulation of a real fight, especially once the distance is closed and you're close. So this will teach your children how to win a fight without relying on strength or size. They learn how to control, they learn leverage, and they learn how to stay calm in the face of physical danger or physical situations. Number 2, problem-solving skills under duress. Jiu-jitsu is problem-solving. It's kind of like physical chess. It shows you how to think ahead. It teaches you how to adapt, stay calm when things get rough, all while being physically active. Number 3, you learn about growth mindset, and you're going to learn about it even if you don't understand what it is. But once you're taught what it is, and most schools teach what it is, a light bulb will go off. Growth mindset is the idea that abilities can improve with effort, and it's the opposite of a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is assuming that your abilities are not changeable and they're set in stone. I'm bad at math. I'm good at science. I'm bad at X. I'm good at Y. That kind of thinking. A growth mindset would say, I just didn't have the right teacher yet, or I didn't have the right opportunity to try it out yet, or maybe not interested in that. That's different than not being good at something and it being a fixed trait. So growth mindset, they'll definitely learn, and that's super valuable. They'll tap out, they'll get frustrated, they'll lose, and that's the point. Jiu-jitsu will teach your kids how to bounce back, stay humble, keep improving, and when they get knocked down, get back up. Number 4, confidence, real confidence that sticks. Nothing builds real confidence like watching yourself grow. Confidence comes from your practice, from previous iterations, from facing challenges on the mat and overcoming them. Kids will learn how to believe in themselves by earning progress, not simply by praise. Honestly, we don't praise results as much as we praise effort. So growth mindset is an effort-based way of growing, and that will give you confidence. So number 4 is confidence. Number 5, respect and discipline. You bow on and off the mats. You listen to your coaches. Jiu-jitsu instills structure, like humility. It brings manners. Number 6 is focus and attention span. We live in an age of distraction, and jiu-jitsu forces you to be present. You're not thinking about your phone or whatever's going on anywhere else except for 2 feet away from you when someone is trying to choke you or armbar you. So this forces kids to learn how to concentrate, listen closely, solve problems in the moment, be mentally engaged. All these essential skills for school and beyond. Number 7, it's a physical fitness workout without boredom. Because it's problem solving, it's almost like a game. I tell the kids it's almost like a video game. You build strength, you build coordination, you build balance, you build endurance, but you actually have fun because it's problem solving. And solving problems is happiness. Number 8, you learn a lifelong skill with no off season. So jiu-jitsu isn't just a sport, it's a skill. It's a lifelong discipline. Whether your kid sticks with it for years or uses it as a base for other sports or for just a knowledge of how to do anything in life, it builds a foundation that lasts. So even when I have students that only come stay in my school for a year, but then I see them excel somewhere else, I believe that jiu-jitsu helped them because I know it's helped me in so many crazy places I never would have expected to have a jiu-jitsu mindset. I now find myself having a jiu-jitsu mindset. Number 9, community and friendship. The gym is a place that becomes a second home. Kids bond over the shared challenges and they build trust and they feel part of something bigger if the culture's right. And number 10, it teaches kids courage to face the vulnerability that jiu-jitsu requires. So learning how and when to have courage is an essential skill. And it's got to be practiced. It's not something that you just always have. If you're not practicing when to be brave and the time comes for you to be brave, you have a better chance with a better outcome if you're practicing in a more real-like scenario. So if you're really practicing in a place that requires courage, which getting on a jiu-jitsu mat, even if you're a kid, requires some level of courage, and you practice that on a daily basis, you put yourself in uncomfortable positions on purpose and try to work your way out of it, you're vulnerable, and vulnerability always requires courage. If you do these things, that is a valuable skill. Having courage is an essential skill, and it can be improved with practice. Right now, the world needs more courageous problem solvers. So this is why we advocate for jiu-jitsu so much. Find jiu-jitsu. There's good schools all over the area. Find a good program and get your kids into it. And this is why we say this at the end of every episode. In our last segment here, I found my first fossil this week, and it was a pretty good one. Earlier this year, I was invited by Dr. Phil Stokes, who serves as the executive director of the Penn Dixie Fossil Park, right here in the Blaisdell-Hamburg border, basically. And I'm not actually sure what town it's in, but it's a 54-acre outdoor fossil dig site, and it's just on the edge of Hamburg. So, basically kind of where the Ford plant is, behind it, up on a hill there. And it was once a cement quarry, and now it's been transformed into one of the top fossil parks in the United States. It even holds a Guinness Book of World Record for the world's largest fossil dig. And the site exposes Devonian period shale, which is like these big chunks of dark shale that when you hit it, it breaks into like skipping rocks, basically. And this particular weekend that just happened is their biggest event of the year, where people come from all over the place. There were hundreds, at least 150 to 200 cars in the parking lot, all from different states. So you'd see, people raise their hand. They were from Seattle, from Florida, from Utah. It's one of the best places in the world for this kind of fossil. And the main one you're looking for, they're called trilobites. And they're basically they look like cockroaches, kind of. They're almost like underwater crabs, and they're fairly small. Most of the ones you find are a little bit bigger than your thumbnail, but then there's some ones that are bigger that are almost like the size of a school eraser. So you have those separate little erasers you get, like the pencil and the eraser, that square eraser. They're like that size. They're a little bigger. And I got beginner's luck. It's not that common to find them. I mean, there was a few found. I think I saw probably 10 whole big ones found. And I found one that was pretty good shape, and it was sticking up out of the rock, and it was really cool. I also found a few more that were pretty close to being full too. So I found 3 pretty close to full ones that anyone would have been happy to find. So that was kind of exciting. It's a lot of work though. You take these big rocks and you bash them with a rock hammer and a wedge, and you peel the shale off and you look inside. It's pretty exciting when you find stuff. I found a lot of different kinds of fossils. A lot of them are just shellfish, such as brachiopods, which brachiopods are kind of like a little clam. I'm not going to categorize these correctly. There's more technical terms for these. There's corals you can find, crinoids that you can find, gastropods, I guess you can find, bivalves, plant material, little like worm-like things. But pretty much the one everyone's looking for is the trilobites here, because the trilobites they look like a little creature, and they come in these like 3D kind of forms if you can find a whole one. So that was really cool. I was able to find that. I just want to thank everyone. So a huge thank you for the invitation to this event. It was really exciting and fun. I definitely would do it again. Recommend it to almost anyone. If you got kids, it's kind of a cool place. You can just take your kids there for a day, kind of bang through the rocks. So they can lend you tools, they rent you tools, I should say, and you can go out into the family-friendly environment and dig through the rocks. And you can just find fossils by sifting through it too. So I did find 2 trilobites just in the rubble, and then some of them I had to break open rocks with a rock hammer. So a huge thank you to Penn Dixie for the invite, and I would recommend it to anyone. Check out our Instagram page and our Facebook page here for the I Love Buffalo podcast, and I'll post some pictures up there of the trilobites and other cool fossils that I found. This week, the business that we're going to highlight is called Harvest House. This is a community nonprofit on Buffalo's east side, and it's been around for 32 years. I met with their director, Carol Murphy, and she told me all about their program that they have here, and it's super interesting. I hope I get most of this right. They offer free medical and dental services to people on the east side there, and they operate the Good Neighbors Healthcare. It's a free clinic, provides medical, dental, and wellness care to uninsured and underinsured residents. Keep in mind, this is staffed by volunteer doctors, volunteer dentists, volunteer nurses, and by UB students. So that's awesome for you guys to volunteer your time to do stuff like this. It's awesome for this to exist. I didn't even know this existed. That's how ignorant I am. And they services include routine checkups. They'll do cleanings. They'll do referrals. They also offer baby and children's services by distributing free clothing like books, diapers, toys, cribs, stuff like that, strollers, all kinds of stuff. They serve over 5,000 children annually through this program. It works through a referral-based system with caseworkers, shelters, and agencies. And they also have an education center, housing and life services, and more. 95% of their operations are volunteer-run. Because they focus on building trust between community and connection, they've been able to do quite a bit. They built Buffalo's only free medical and dental clinic. They bring basic needs like clothing to the kids, and they try to prevent homelessness. So kudos to them. If you want to support them, please visit www.harvesthousebuffalo.org. Here's our events for this week, ending in 6/16. First off, the Theodore Roosevelt inaugural site on 6/11 has a twilight tour of the mansions. Join Explore Buffalo for an exclusive opportunity to tour the mansions on Delaware Avenue. Limited tickets are still available. At the Cas on the 11th at 8 o'clock is Runaway Gin, a tribute to Fish. On June 12th, the Corporate Challenge is back in Buffalo at Delaware Park. So that's like a bunch of corporate teams competing with each other. Also on the 12th at 7 o'clock, it's game night at the Hamburg Public Library, open to all ages. And we're saying that to support your local libraries because they also offer an awesome service. On 6/14, Pearl Street has Saturday sessions at sunset with Grub, who we featured last week as our music artist, and they are doing Grub Lime, a tribute set to Sublime on the patio. Starts around 8, goes till around 11. And if you're into that kind of thing, if it's nice, it will be on the patio. If it rains, it comes inside on the main stage. So it's rain or shine event. Grub Line on the 14th. At Tift Nature Preserve on the 14th at 9:30 a.m. is Teach Me to Fish. Free family fishing event. No fishing license required. Rods and reels are available to borrow, and you can bring your own. And registration is required at www.ecfsc.org. Fishing is a huge part of my life, and I think that's super cool that they offer something like this. So if you want to get your kids into fishing, that's a great opportunity at Tift. It connects to the lake. So anything you can catch in the lake, technically you can catch in that little pond in front of Tift there. On Saturday, June 14th at 7 a.m. all day long is the Buffalo Niagara Dragon Boat Festival at Buffalo Riverworks. This is pretty cool. It's like dragon boat racing up and down the river there. If you've never seen that, it's quite a spectacle. Of course, on the 14th as well at Highmark Stadium, the King of Country, George Strait, is in town, along with Chris Stapleton and Parker McCullum. And the 2025 Allentown Art Festival is the whole weekend, and that is the 14th and the 15th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. both days. Don't forget, Sunday, the 15th, is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. At the end here, we're going to leave you a little quote from The Godfather for Father's Day. But before that, we're going to sign off with our sayings. Remember, a rising tide raises all ships. Get your kids into jiu-jitsu. We went over why. And the Buffalo Open Coffee Club is at 7:30 a.m. at Seneca One Tower every Tuesday. And as they like to say there, go build something great in Buffalo this week. Here's The Godfather to remind you what Father's Day is all about. Have a great week, everybody.
You spend time with your family?
Sure I do.
Good. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.